Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Raising Our Gifted Children, which could also go under our author's kiss genre right now, right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest is Amy Meislin Pollack. She has written a wonderful book that really kind of started when she was a child. It's a coming of age book series that helps middle graders navigate the changes of growing up. She's the author of the Adventures of Jelly Bean series. Ever since she was in fourth grade back in the 1960s, Amy was writing and telling stories about a character named Jelly Bean. She never stopped telling those stories, sharing them with her students over a teaching career that spanned 40 plus years. She shared them with her 3 children when they were younger, and then with her 7 grandchildren. Now her stories have been made available to everyone with the recent publishing of 2 coming-of-age books intended for middle graders, and a 3rd book is in the works. Her book touches on the topics of friendship, popularity, death, race, drugs, alcohol, feeling neglected, family issues, and the types of things that many kids today are confronting as they look to find their way in the ever-changing world. She's a retired teacher and grandparent, and we're going to be talking about these books today. And I know she's got a 3rd one in the works due to come out at any time, but let's find out about Jelly Bean. Who is Jelly Bean and what has Jelly Bean got to teach us? Welcome to the show, Amy.
Oh, hi, Sarah. Thank you. Good to be here.
I love it when people, so many people had something that they were passionate about as a child, and then they grew up and got the real job. But that passion was always nagging at them until one day it just comes to the forefront. You have got to, do something with this. So you're saying that Jelly Bean has been with you basically all your life.
Yes, very much so. It all started when I was in fourth grade, and some of my classmates from back then remember it, which I found astounding because for me, that was 61 years ago or so. And my teacher would call me to the front of the class when she had downtime. I don't think it's so much done anymore. I know from having been in a lot of classrooms. And if it was, let's say, before a vacation or she was done with a lesson, she would call me up and I would tell these stories off the top of my head about this little girl, mischievous little forthright fourth grader called Jelly Bean. And she would get into all kinds of scrapes. And I would tell these stories off the top of my head. And mind you, there are plenty of things I can't do particularly well. But one thing I can do is tell stories.
Hmm.
And I really always enjoyed doing that. And then over the years, I started writing them down here and there. And I go into a lot of the schools and I always talk to them. I always go, who here knows what procrastination is? And my stories they're best. My books are best for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders for the
Hmm.
most part. They're really for 7 to 12 year olds. They're middle grade stories. They all know what procrastination is. And regardless of when I say, I was certainly in school and then in college and graduate school, and then I got married, had my own 3 children, and worked quite a lot. And then I taught for 40 some odd years. I taught first elementary, then middle school, then high school, then college. I like college the best, teaching writing, and then just helping with any subjects that the students needed help in writing something for or giving a presentation. And then finally, and I had written other things in the meantime, and I was certainly busy with work and raising children. And, now I'm involved with my grandchildren's lives. I have 7. But in any event, my, COVID came along, and as awful as that was in so many ways, my silver lining was that I was stuck home, and my choice was cleaning out my closets or finishing my jelly bean books. And I was a little tired of my own children saying, "Ma, when are you ever gonna finish those and send them around?" And even my mother-in-law, rest in peace, who was had wonderful qualities, was a very critical person, of all things, would say to me, which gave me new hope and inspired me to finish them and send them around, would say, your children's stories were really good. Whatever happened to them? And I was like, oh my God, this compliment was so meaningful because everything else was, most else was like, why are you wearing that? Or why'd you buy this refrigerator and so forth. So that gave me more impetus. And a cousin of mine, her daughter, who I happened to be sitting next to at an event, gave me a lot of good advice. She's mentioned in my credits, such as if you send them around, and she gave me specific places where I ought to send my books. And she said, you need just one page, a one pager to say, to get someone's attention. And why should they publish your book? And I said, oh, mine's a little bit longer. No, they're only going to read one page in this
Mhm,
pile of, and she knew because she had worked at ICM. It's the biggest creative agency in
mhm.
the United States. Any event, between all that, I finally got inspired and finished them, sent them around, and they got accepted. Um, and I'm actually, so my publisher has my book three. My books are all available on Amazon, and I do presentations everywhere. And I am actually working on my book four.
Wow.
Hmm.
The thing is when it's so much a part of you, and obviously this must have been kind of an alter ego of you. It's
Yes.
like maybe you couldn't be Jelly Bean, but your alter ego for the storytelling could be Jelly Bean. And obviously Jelly Bean was your filter, perhaps the way you looked at life.
Oh, interesting. Yes. Yes and no. It's interesting because as I got these great reviews, which I was happy, needless to say, because if you send in your book, you don't have to have the review published if you don't like it. But I was like,
Right.
wow, these are really good. And they would say things like, and you can read all this on my website, amypollack.com, Jelly Bean's a role model. And I was
Hmm.
like, wow, I certainly didn't set out to
Yeah.
accomplish that. But when you say it's a little bit of me speaking through my character, and I'll tell you why and why not, I was happy that they would say this kind of thing because in the books, as they also said, and my PR person says, Jelly Bean learns to think for herself, which is hard.
Yeah.
And
Especially our generation. It was
oh my,
suppressed a great deal, right?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm the oldest of my siblings. Jelly Bean's the youngest,
Mm,
which is not me, but it's a little bit my daughter because she's the youngest of three. She has two older brothers. Jelly Bean has three older brothers because it was originally, in a lot of ways, patterned after my husband's cousin, who I was always
mm,
close with, the only girl in her family, and she has three older brothers. And I was seeing through the years and with my daughter that a lot of times, especially when it's older brothers, you get teased, you get
yes.
squeezed out. They almost have their own language,
Yeah.
and you're not always a part of things. And she's kind of like that. And that's why she kind of comes to depend on her dog a lot because he gives her comfort. And through, as you said, other issues she confronts, and my characters always tell me what they want me to do.
Yes, yes, yes.
This is why I'm not great at outlining. I've always taught it, but it's more like do as I say, not as I do. I'm just not great at it because I always go on different paths. But for example, she has this biracial good friend who she loves, but the little girl lives, let's so to say, on the wrong side of the tracks.
Hmm.
And her mother isn't home. She can't be home a lot. She's a single parent. She has to work a lot of hours. And this is all my book is very real. That's all part of
Yes.
life. But
Yes.
her parents don't want her going over there for the
Mm.
safety factor. So my book is, and I grew up with a lot of this kind of thing, as many, if not most people have. She has to decide what to do about this. This is like a wonderful little girl. She's her really good friend. She's not allowed to go there. Neither is anybody else in the class, which is not
Yeah.
fun for the little girl.
Isolating the poor girl out. Yeah.
Right. So that's a big part of my story, how she works this out. She doesn't quite understand why she's not allowed to go there. And you'll see if you when you read the book, if slash when you read the book, what she ends up doing about that situation. Then, as any, if not many rather, if not most of boys and girls confront, there's a popular group and not so popular. Every single person I feel like finds that relatable. And Jelly Bean has to decide and figure out how much she wants to sacrifice to be friends with those particular kids or not.
Hmm.
And that's in there. That's a continuing thread. She makes those decisions. Then she has another little friend, I don't want to give too much away, who's anorexic, and that's a big issue of these times. Maybe if not always.
Yes, it's always been there. I mean,
I think
yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah.
So she has to decide, well, there's an incident where this girl is in crisis, and Jelly Bean has to decide what she's going to do or not do to help her out. And then she has ups and downs with her family members, as honest to God, I think the entire world can relate to.
Yes.
She gets along with some of her brothers better than others. And then her oldest brother, well, again, without giving too much away, ends up sapping a lot of her parents' attention because he doesn't want to finish high school, which is no parent's dream,
Hmm.
generally speaking. 99% of families, I'm going to venture to guess. And so there's that going on, and he wants to be in the military, and which is admirable in one sense, but the parents obviously would have preferred him to finish high school. So that's
Yeah.
going on. And what else are major threads? Oh, there are a few deaths which everyone has to confront at
Yes.
one
Yeah. You,
time or
you
another.
don't get through life without death. No.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. One is a beloved grandparent, and one is a friend's mother. I won't say too much more about that. And then there's relationships, like her uncle, who she loves, is first with someone that is awful, like not a good person. And then you see who he ends up with, who Jellybean likes a lot. And
So basically, it's life.
it's life.
It's her navigating through life. But I want to know more about the dog
Mm.
because,
Everyone does.
yeah, well, I mean, let's face it, animals are so incredibly intuitive creatures.
I know.
They speak to us in volumes and they know us, because they're literally heart to heart. And they have such, wonderful, intuitive knowledge of how we feel, when to comfort and also, when to bite us in the butt, so to speak. But,
Exactly.
very often humans, we feel let us down, but animals don't. And so
Exactly.
having a dog that, for all that she's going through, that is there for her,
Hmm.
was that your experience growing up, or was that an experience you wanted to have that you gave to Jellybean?
Well, it's so funny you should. And a lot of people just love her pet, Roger Over. And I always read the part where he gets away, but don't worry, that works out okay. So my husband is a huge dog lover, and we've had many dogs over the years. And you're so right. I think he misses it now but we just go to all our grandchildren so
Yeah.
frequently that it was just getting a little difficult to have one. But I know he misses it. No, I did not grow up with a dog, although both my parents did. So I think, well,
It was the desire to have, right? That best friend.
yeah, and I have to say, my brother, who I love dearly, was not so easy to raise. So I think that's what kind of put the
Yeah.
kibosh on getting a pet on top of all that.
But the pet actually probably would have brought some calmness, to the family. So
Well,
depending what kind of breed you get. But yeah, I mean,
no, yeah, it's funny
yeah,
you should say that because my parents, after my sister and I left for college, did get him a dog who, like you say, they're so
yeah,
intuitive
yeah,
and figure out everything, walked itself back home over major highways that night or the next day. They told
uh-huh.
me that the people called and said, "How come you gave back Sam?" And my mother was like, "What?" And he didn't want to stay with my family, I guess. So it's interesting you should say that. So they didn't
With
try
the,
again.
just on as a side note, having interviewed an awful lot of people on animal behaviorists, etc.,
Hmm.
but they
Hmm.
say, animals, when an animal plays up, it's not playing up because it wants to, it's reflecting you.
Hmm.
Right? So it's a reflect, sorry, it's reflecting on what's going on with the people or the person and the situation. So they're a great
Yes.
indication there's something wrong when something has not been made obvious yet. And so we punish the dog, but really what it is a reflection. And so it's like if we could pay attention to that instead of suppressing or ignoring it,
Hmm.
then we actually give permission for that dog to be part of that healer. So, but
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, a dog sometimes is smart and go, no, this family's just too troubled for me. I go somewhere else.
Really? Oh gosh. Well, yeah, our first dog, who was wonderful, and my kids
Mm,
adored the dog. I have a picture here, but he was a comfort and wonderful. We always got rescues, and they
yeah,
were mixed breeds, and yeah, they were. As of the last one who kind of bit me a lot, but she was protecting my husband, and she had had a sad background.
right, yes.
So,
Yeah, and we've got to bear in mind their hearts and souls like we are. And so,
hmm.
it's very often, the thing is no better than a dog. Sorry, a dog is very often better than a human. So, there's some
No,
terminologies that need to change. But
definitely.
my brother is an author and has been for many, many years, and
Uh-huh.
he went into youth genre and wrote some wonderful books, kind of
Aw.
definitely multi-dimensional and things like
Mhm.
this, but he always, always had a dog in there. And he said the bugger of having a dog is that when the kids get into dire situation, it's the kids can get through it. The dog is always the challenge to get through it. And
You're right.
um,
So right.
yeah, so it's for him it was always the dog. Even when he wrote a space one, there was a robotic type thing that was a dog type creature, right?
Oh,
Because the
interesting.
dog, and we grew up with dogs as well, so it was that dog had to be there because the dogs very often were the warning, were the comfort, were the
Hmm.
courage, were the strength, were the intuitiveness that the
Hmm.
children needed to
Yes.
navigate the path. So I'm glad that you've written that dog in there because in many ways it was that companion that because you talk to a dog and they find a way to answer you, right?
He
So
finds that
yeah,
jelly
yeah,
bean. And if anything happened to that dog, well, eventually, have to, but which is
yeah.
awful. But my husband said, no, then I won't be able to read it. And it's funny you
Yes.
should say that about being so intuitive and
Yeah.
helpful and caring. I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but my mother had, and both my parents had big families, but my mother's one cousin, the dog saved her. He pushed her back. Oh, I'm gonna get emotional. When a car was coming and
Um,
it pushed her down, but it saved her life.
I have to tell you a life-saving story of my dog. I lived in South Africa for some years and I had
Ah.
an open sports car. And, I've always, part of my illness is always being in and out of kind of depression. And there was a
Hmm.
new drug out there and I was given this new drug, but they had to quickly take it off the market because too many
Oh,
people were committing suicide.
oh gosh.
And
Wow.
I'm driving along the coastline of the Cape, which is beautiful, but the road is carved into the mountains. So
Hmm.
it's rocks down to the ocean, right? And I'm driving, and there's a curve at the top, but you could stop there and look out. It's a beautiful
Hmm.
scenic view. Why they
Hmm.
never put a railing there, I don't know, because so many people actually drove right off that cliff. And I'm driving along with my dog, and I'm high as a kite, from this
Hmm.
from this drug. And she barks at me, and I barked back at her. And then
Oh,
she paws me and I paw her back. The next thing she did, she took her entire body and threw it over on me. And I
wow.
was driving stick and my foot came off the pedal, right? And the car kind of came to a stop. My
Oh my.
tires were on the edge of the cliff.
Oh,
I had no intentions of driving off the cliff to commit suicide, but I thought I could fly.
oh,
And she knew. And I
wow.
snapped out of whatever I was in, stopped taking those pills, and they took them from the market anyway.
Oh my God.
But it's like we would not be here if it was not for her. Now, she
Wow.
clearly knew something was wrong, but how did she know to do what she did?
Wow.
Right? So do
Animals
not
are,
dismiss an animal because
no.
if they're trying, you see it all the time, on
Wow.
YouTube and things where a elk or this that comes to a human, please follow me,
Mm.
please follow me. One of
Oh,
my kind is in trouble. And it's like, please
right.
pay attention to them. They have so much to tell you. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Or like
Uh,
that show, I forget the name. It takes place in Africa and it's about elephants and their knowledge and how they
yes.
behave.
Yeah.
It might be the Elephant Whisperer, but
Yeah,
it's
right, and of
wonderful.
course an elephant never forgets, good or bad, right? So they're
Uh-huh.
and they they can be far, far away, and either somebody who's looked after the elephants or an old elephant dies, and they'll come as a tribe to pay tribute, and it's it's
Wow.
this is the thing is that many of our problems as humans is that we've isolated ourselves from all other creatures and nature
Yeah,
that is here to support us.
that is sad.
And we are our own worst enemy in many ways because we inflict all that is wrong upon ourselves
I
because we
know.
don't incorporate nature and animal world or spiritual world into
Yeah.
being part of our navigation. So all that, Jelly Bean goes through, so much of it could be avoided if we just, didn't just think humanoid and we
Mhm.
branched out a little more.
I didn't think about it in that way, but that is so true. Interesting. Yeah, and she does show that when she's,
Mm,
I don't know what made me do it, but she was always going to her dog for comfort.
yeah.
And I'm not sure how much you read, but she knows that he understands her.
Yes. Oh God, yes. They speak directly to our heart and soul, which
Yeah,
then finds its way to our mind, right? So again, if
interesting.
something doesn't speak your language to you, it's speaking their language, which will find its connection. Just be open to
Interesting.
receive.
And a lot of people love that part of
Yeah.
love the dog in my book.
Yeah. 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 Because
Moral.
everybody wants that companion, right?
That's true.
But it also sounds like Jelly Bean is one of those people that truly cares for other people.
She does. She
She's
really
not
does.
somebody that is, oh, you've got to be with the right people.
Not at
That's what
all.
I call the outside living.
Yeah,
Societal's expectation. You can only wear this. You've got to have this many followers. You've got to live here. You can only associate with those kind of people. That is the outside living. It's empty. It will always let you down. It will always take
hmm
you down the wrong path. When you
right.
come from the inside out, heart, soul, spirit, mind, body connection, then you will always be guided in the right way. And it feels like she is somebody that was very much driven by her soul, her heart, and her spirit connection rather than the exterior one.
She is with friendships and the other boys and girls in her class, and she's very empathetic to
Mm.
a lot of them. And not only that, she follows her own heart with, and maybe it's partially me thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't have forced my kids into doing a particular activity. But I did because it seemed like the right way to go.
What we knew at the time.
Of course,
Yeah.
yes. And if you had it to go backwards, but life is
Yes.
lived going forward.
Yes.
So she'll drop out of an activity if she doesn't, if it's not for her, if she doesn't
Right.
like it.
Yeah.
So there's
And you
that.
see, that's where that lesson comes into adults. We talked about this before we came on the air. Where should it go? And, I chose raising our gifted children because, our children are born gifted. And
Hmm.
it's up to us to help them navigate that gift and bring it into their strength and their ability. And if we listen to our children and really truly watch them instead of trying to conform them,
No,
and control them, we would actually have a much better world. And I think
no.
the whole thing about our kids is they They are born intuitive. They are born already connected. We're the ones that sever that connection. And I think for adults to read these books and know what your kids are reading, you read it too. You know what they're reading. It is such a revised lesson for the adults,
Hmm.
grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, teachers, because it's a reflection on, oh God, yes, I used to do that. Why did I do that? I did that because it was
No.
expected of me to do that. Now I have a
Yeah.
better understanding that no, you shouldn't do that. And I know how to be more supportive in your
Hmm.
choice, the right to
Right.
make the right choice, right? So,
Yeah. So we try to guide them, but
mm,
we do our best, and then they're prisoners to fortune. But but you're right. I do agree with that. And a lot of parents have told me that they like the book because it opens up pathways for
conversation.
communication and things that are could be tough to talk about that
Yeah.
go on in our world today. And then of course there's the grandmother's role who, like my grandparents, I know, were so wonderful with smoothing things over
Yeah.
because they've been through it all. They've
Yeah.
seen a lot of these situations, not so much with all the technology and so forth,
Right.
but they're just a good voice in there. And they know what it's like to be the child, to be the parent, and now this. So
Mhm.
they're her
Well,
grandmother is
again, we were talking
important.
about that before the show because we're both grandmas, and I had to wait, to be 66 before I became a grandma.
Hmm.
And I'm
Hmm.
70 now, and I've got two beautiful little grandboys, and maybe another down the road.
Uh,
Because I think my oldest grandson is predicting a sister. He keeps going on and on about his sister, so
aw,
who knows?
aw.
Um, but the beauty of it is my daughter sees how I am with the grandchildren.
Hmm.
What is a wonderful reflection for them? They do not remember any of the love we poured into our children,
You know,
right? Now, my daughter also
true.
said to me, My God, how did you do it with three? And I said, I don't know, I just did it. And I had to
You just
stop and
do.
try and remember. Now, you remember certain events or
You do.
situations of this that
Hmm.
you don't remember the day to day because you're up getting breakfast, getting them off to school, packing their lunch. You got to pick them up. You got
Doing
to
what
do
you
this.
have
You
to
got to do
do.
that. You got to do.
Right.
You're so in the routine
Moment.
of it.
Hmm.
It's only little things that kind of come up that you remember. So, but it's like even yourself, I'm sure when you first, play with your grandchildren, did I do this with my children? I must
Mm,
have because that's my heart,
yeah,
right?
somewhere along the line. But
Yeah,
certain things my kids will say, "Don't you remember this?" And then I'll be, "No, I
I know.
don't."
Yeah, and
And then
it's
I feel
sad that we
bad.
don't. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
But as a grandparent, as you said, we've been the kid, we've been the adult. Now,
Hmm.
as a grandparent, we have totally different perspective on things. We don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't.
But we
Not
also
at
have
all.
a broader view on things. And people think we
Yeah.
don't as we get older, but we do. We see
Yeah.
things in a broader way, but we also know how to bring it down to simplify it.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
The
other words, listen
grandmother.
to your grandparents.
No, I know. The grandmother, she does have that role, and
Mm,
she is very close with Jelly Bean. And then when the grandmother is going to move away, Jelly
mm.
Bean, she's not happy because
No,
here's
no.
someone that has the time to listen to her and the skills and the caring. And, her mother's busy, like we were raising,
Yes.
well, in her mother's case, the four kids and working and, there's a lot in her own life and there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And so kind of, later on you feel guilty as a parent. Did I do enough?
you do.
Why did the children make those choices? I should have been there. And it's like, we have to stop beating ourselves up because
I
we
know.
we did what we knew in the time that we knew it. And hindsight is 2020. Can't go
Always.
back and fix it. All we can do is deal with the now. And I think
Yeah.
that is definitely something we can teach our children, grandchildren, whatever, is
Hmm.
be present. Be
Hmm.
present with self and your situation. Don't get drawn into something. Again, the outside living. Be present. How do you feel? What feels right? Not should you, because everybody else is.
I know.
But is this something that you want to do, you need to do, or you should not do? Yeah.
Yeah, that is a tough one. That's not
Mhm.
always easy to figure out. And that's in my books also. And there are those different situations where there are choices. And yeah, when I was talking to my PR person about it, I said, so I'm not sure how to answer when people say, what is your book about? And he said to me, it makes you think. It does.
Yes. Yes.
Because you have, and no choice is probably going to be perfect because that's not
No.
life. My book is
No.
very real. These situations happen. This one girl, well, I think this is in my book three, hasn't been very nice to her, but her mother is very ill. And her
Mm.
mother says, no, we have to go over there. And I remember doing this with my kids, and I said, no, this is something you need to do.
Compassion, right?
Yeah, it's so
Mm.
important. And
Put your own ego or your own thing away. Not everything in life is going to be comfortable.
mhm.
But sometimes we have to do it to be supportive.
Right, like when they say, oh, do I have to? Which, happens all the time. And I'm like, well, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
It's just how it
Yeah.
is.
And that I think is a teaching our kids to, yeah, sometimes you've just got to step up and do something
Mhm.
that, you may not feel comfortable with, or, that is, you really rather be doing something else.
May not be your top choice.
Yeah. But what does it mean to the other person?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
And I think that is when you look at what it means to the other person, it kind of makes you look at your own self and go, oh yeah, kind of, I was being a bit selfish there. Maybe it is time for me to give back. And I think the more we teach our kids to be there for other people,
Hmm.
whether, it's not whether they want to be or not, because obviously they would all rather just hang out with their friends and do whatever.
Of
But,
course.
but it's learning that compassion and that empathy and consideration for other people.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
that's a valuable lesson for them to learn because at some point in your life you're going to hope people are there for you on
You're
that.
gonna be that
Mm,
you are gonna be that person.
yes, that
But
recipient.
that's
Yes.
why when she wants to go to her friend's house and she can't quite understand why her mother won't let her,
Hmm.
but is the danger aspect. So life is multifaceted, many-sided.
So the question is, why couldn't the girl come to her house?
She did. She was
Okay,
allowed. But
good.
nobody, oh, of course, but nobody
Right,
was ever allowed to go to her house. And that
right.
makes the little girl feel bad.
Of
So
course, because
there
she
you go.
feels isolated, nobody
Mhm.
wants her, and
Mhm.
really doesn't understand the danger of that because she lives in it.
Of course.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in England, and I remember the first person of color coming to my school, and I was just fascinated. Why
Oh,
are you
yeah.
a different color? You know, for me,
Oh,
it was just
interesting.
intriguing. Then I went to live in South Africa with my mother after my father died, and of course, totally different world over there altogether. And so I got into trouble a few times for speaking out, where, like not meant to. And one of the reasons I left was because of apartheid and misogyny.
Hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why I left. And my ex-husband is Chinese. So for me, I've never seen, it's an embracement of the culture, an embracement of the character. And I
Hmm.
think if we could show our kids, please stop dividing and categorizing and look
Agree.
to the heart and soul and character of a person, because that's what you're connecting with. You're not connecting with the containment they're in,
Right. Right. Not so much appearance. And she is, along those lines, understanding of what someone else might say. She just has that certain intuition.
Hmm.
So in her class, okay, her brother has gone to fight in Afghanistan, and this doesn't give a lot away, but her teacher has asked her to come to the front of the class and would she speak about that? So when this one little boy raises his classmate raises his hand and says, well, is he going to die? And
Hmm.
everyone's like, oh my God, don't say it. And that's how I know this from
Yes,
teaching
yes, yes.
and all these things. And then Jellybean goes, don't be that way towards him. He's just
Mm,
saying what everybody else is thinking. And
hmm.
she kind of gets it in certain
Yeah.
ways
Well,
that,
and I think, for kids to understand our first responders, anybody that puts themselves on the line,
mhm,
firemen, policemen, paramedic, orderlies, everything, they're putting themselves on the line, and so are our soldiers. And there is
Mhm.
always a chance they won't come home.
Of
And
course.
I think for children to understand that there is their commitment, but if we send them what I call white light and love,
Hmm.
let it be their protection, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be enough. And I think, we look at life and death, but we don't talk about um, why a person is choosing that and that they
Mm.
know the consequences, but what their conviction is in their choice is bigger than that consequence.
Yes, because I don't know if you've read the book. We did it for my book club. I chose this one actually. Diamond Eye, the diamond.
No.
Well, it's interesting because it's based on a true story, and in World War II, this one Russian woman becomes a sharpshooter, and she helped the Allies win the war. So this one woman in my book club, which is a natural feeling, she said, but I don't see how I don't understand how she could leave her son for
Mm,
all that amount of time. She was
yeah.
gone for a couple of years, but she left the son not in an orphanage or
Right.
not by
Yes.
himself. He was with his grandparents.
Yeah.
Now, would that be a choice I would make?
Right.
No, but I understand and I am impressed by someone that could do that. This was what she needed to do, what she
Her
wanted to
conviction.
do.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it
So, like,
becomes the family's sacrifice, right? Because the
yeah,
children and everybody's sacrificing not seeing them. But that if we
yes,
didn't have these people
you
that
need
put
them.
themselves on the line, and then
Yes,
where would we be? And we really should look at them as, applaud them for that choice because we know the sacrifice they're making.
exactly.
And having interviewed so many people of veterans, I have our global veterans stories. So many of the veterans, they never come back the same way that they
No,
go. Never. And it's
no.
like, it's for us to know who they are today and what they need, because now it's our turn to be compassionate over them for what they've seen, what they've been through, a lot of guilt carried with them, a lot of stress. And, right now, firework time with, Guy Fawkes, not Guy Fawkes, that's British, Halloween. Uh, and, a lot of time you see people putting up fireworks and they don't realize the stress it causes animals, but also
Oh,
for
yeah.
people with post-traumatic stress hearing that bang
Yeah,
bang. And
yeah.
there's so
That's
many
not
beautiful
good.
ways now they can actually do drones like fireworks to music rather than the bang bang. So
Oh.
it's time for us to be compassionate
Hmm.
for people
Hmm.
who have put themselves out there and to understand the sacrifice that they have made, and now it's time for us to step up for them.
Oh, you're so right. Yeah, that is that type of situation. And yeah, her brother does go. He's committed to going to war and he wants to re-enlist. Actually, I'll have
Mm,
that in my book four. And I don't know if he will come back the
mhm.
same. I haven't gotten that far yet. And everything I is in there is handled from the point of view of
Of
a
Jelly Bean.
young girl.
Yeah. And again, of the years I've been interviewing veterans, none of them ever have come back the same.
I don't think
And
so.
and it's they may deal with it. One of them, Bobby Henline, his Hummy blew up, and all of his friends lost. He was burnt right down to his shoulders, lost an arm, face,
Oh,
and everything. But he went on to become a comedian in order
mm,
to deal with it. And, I've
oh,
interviewed him 3 times, and,
huh,
he said, look, I have my bad days. I have my days where it's just the covers over my head and I can't deal with it.
sure.
But it's like those days where I get out there and learn to laugh at myself and show that life moves on. And,
Hmm.
that everything we go for life, whether it is seen as obvious as that, or whether it's internal trauma,
Hmm.
it is there for us to discover our strength, our courage, our abilities, our meaningful purpose, and whom we're here to serve, right?
Yes.
So everything we go through in life, and I think when people like Jellybean's age is the age that you've taken it over, the more we can help them navigate all of the things that are around them, we teach them that courage, that
Hmm.
inner strength to
Exactly.
discover their abilities and maybe even discover their calling through that. And if we can help them navigate through those, because they're awful years, those years.
They're hard.
I call them the
Very.
exorcist years where the heads start turning around because, the hormones. You've had three, I've had three, those teenage years.
Oh
Oh my
Lord.
God.
That is just beyond. No, you're
Yeah.
so right. And at one point, she has trouble concentrating in school, which a
Mm.
lot, from all
Oh
my
yeah.
years of teaching, that's just how it is. Like she'll follow what's going on out the window.
Hmm.
And I've taught in non-air conditioned classrooms, and believe me, it's hard to
Yeah.
focus. But then she wants to get all involved in, I don't want to make her sound like a goody two-shoes because she gets in trouble also.
Right.
But like when she wanted to set up a restaurant with her two little friends at home, and she had no idea where she was going to get the food from, but she spills the ketchup and mustard all over the her mother's good tablecloths, and her mother's like, "Oh my God, what
Uh,
did you do?" But at the same point, she is very multifaceted, and in school, she decides, and she's focusing on this rather than schoolwork, collecting clothes and shoes and goods for families in need.
right.
And so when she brings that up, and the teacher, and I get this too, I understand you have a certain amount you have to
Yeah.
cover, and someone's distracting you, and she keeps raising her hand and saying, like, I want to collect clothes for, and then, the teacher's throwing up his hands. And you can see both sides. Like, yes, this
Yeah.
is important, and she has to say it right now, which a lot of kids that age.
Yes, it's in the moment. And we want them to be in the moment, but at the same time, okay, write that down,
Hmm.
right? In your moment, write it down, and we will address it more thoroughly later. And that's something they've got
Exactly.
to learn. But, the
Exactly.
idea comes into your head, document it, write it down so we can revisit it. And that's something they have to learn. We're not diminishing what you're thinking
No.
of in the moment, but it's not the time and place.
That's how it is. So, yeah, that's all in there.
So there's, essence of you in there that's been there from your whole childhood, and I imagine very much for the raising of your children, not the grandchildren, a little smidgen and dash of this and them in there, but
Yes.
also as a teacher,
Hmm.
so much that you've seen through there. So, um, you've made a smoker's board of kind of
Hmm.
environment in which for Jelly Bean to really dive into.
Hmm. And certain things from my husband's growing up, like
Mm.
once he was talking with one of his friends, and I put this in there. It's in my book three, actually. So one of the teachers, if you can believe it, no, I think I have it in my book four. In any event, had given them chemicals, if you can believe this. Of course, this was in the late 50s, early 60s. And I was like, wait, what? And they mixed them together and almost burned the house down. But yeah, one of her brothers is doing this, and she's like, and she and her two little friends are watching him, and this really happened. So I have a lot based. It's one of my favorite stories of his, which, like, thank God they all lived through this. But so that's in there, and her little restaurant set up, which kind of failed.
Well,
But
it shows enthusiasm.
she does
It
have a
shows
good.
compassion and enthusiasm and, compulsion to do things. And that's good. We want to encourage that in our children.
Hmm.
And it's like, don't discourage them because they want to do something, but help them navigate the how to do it
Hmm.
productively. And I think
Yes,
this is something that's a lesson to the adults. It's like, do not say, no, you can't. Right? It is a
I know.
question of, okay, you wish to do that, but do you know what it entails? Okay,
Yeah,
let's now make a
exactly.
list of what it entails. Do you still want to do it? But you've got to get X, Y, and Z organized before you can do it. And I think
Yes.
this is where we can help our children. I'm going to do a shameless plug here because I put out a book this year, an anthology, 15 chapters around the system that is wrong in raising our children, and it's called
Oh,
Our Forgotten Children.
oh.
And it's from teachers, from people, children advocates, etc.
Hmm.
And it's about how the system, didn't support them to support the children, and how we're ending up with so many kids today so disconnected, not from life, but when you've got kids that can bang together and go stab someone to death, right? It's we've let them down.
Yeah.
Because they're bad kids, they became what they were because we've let them down. And I think we really need to look at the whole entire system of
Yes.
raising our children today. And like Jelly Bean. with all that she goes through. She's enthusiastic, she
Mm.
is compassionate, she's empathic, she is industrious, she is a go-getter, and
Yes.
all of those type of things. We let us turn our eyes to see what our children are,
Hmm.
and let us give them the tools and the skills they need to navigate that enthusiasm, not
Yes.
suppress it.
Even if they're not agreeing with you
Yeah,
every step of the way, which
exactly.
teenagers, they're most
But
certainly
then
not.
that's teaching them to, okay, why do you disagree? We don't need to get in a huff about it. Let's
Hmm.
look at both sides and try and understand. Because if we teach them that, you're not going to end up with such a divided country like you have right now.
Oh, you're
Because
so
nobody's
right.
listening, it's bashing, it's not listening.
Hmm.
And if we could learn to listen, we'd find out there's so much more common denominator than there
Yeah.
is separate. And it's because we've been taught not to listen, shout over each other, and also to not care. If
Hmm.
you don't agree with me, I hate you. Where did that come about? Right.
Well, I don't want to get political, but I can have some answers to that. But yeah,
Yeah. And
it is
this
a
is something
problem.
that, even like the current situation right now is teaching our kids that hate rhetoric, loud
Mm.
and false, can win. And we've got to send the message of no, it can't.
No, that's so sad. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where's your own honor, your own integrity,
Hmm.
your own compassion, your own truth? It's not about the hysteria, right? And the more that we learn to see each other, not for again the encasing that we're in or the religion that we have, but more as human beings with passions and desires and fears, weaknesses and strengths, and we're there to help each other as a village,
Hmm.
then I think we will grow stronger. And if we could teach our children that, they're going to clean up the mess that we as adults have put them in.
Oh, that's certainly the hope. I mean, I know once when I was teaching, I guess this was ninth graders. Oh, this did not work out. So I wanted everyone to go around and share their oh, customs, food they made in their
Hmm.
house and their beliefs. Oh boy, we get to this one poor little boy, not poor, but, and he said that his religion had many gods. It was something from an Asian country. And
Hmm.
everyone started, oh, that's not true, laughing.
Yeah.
That's his beliefs.
Yes.
And I felt so bad because okay, I said we have to stop.
Yeah.
It wasn't working out.
But where
Well,
does that come from? It's not the kids, it's the
their home.
parents, it's the
I know.
environment.
Yeah,
This is where, with the forgotten children, we've got to look at the environment we're raising our kids in,
you're so
because
right.
we're teaching them to judge, to hate, to condemn, to
It's terrible.
separate, and we're not
I know.
teaching them to unite and embrace.
I
So,
know. Because when people, which I really hate, try to blame the schools, I'm like,
mm.
no, I've been in many schools. It's the homes. I'm sorry.
But it is the schools in the sense that it's admin running the schools, not the teachers. How many
Oh,
teachers, right? How many teachers have I spoken to and saying I had to put up my money to buy the things like this? I was restricted on this. I couldn't teach that. I
no.
had to follow the curriculum. And
Yeah.
and eventually I had to leave because I just couldn't do it anymore.
Hmm.
Right? So it's like the teachers get in there because they really want to educate
They're
and
dedicated.
and
Most,
dedicate, and
all
then
the
you've got
ones
a
I've
system
known.
that's against them. It's the
I
same
know.
with the medical. It's you've got accountants running hospitals,
I know.
pharmacare and all of that. So,
Terrible.
pharmaceutical. So at some point we have to look at all of these systems, dismantle them and rebuild. But if we're not willing to look at the systems, how are we ever going to change them?
I know. It's a sticky wicket.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And it's gotten kind of entrenched, which is not good.
No, no.
I
So,
agree.
it drained the sewage. Yeah, the sewage is where when money and guns become more important than life, that's when you have to look at your system is completely broken, right? So
Yeah.
all lives matter, all cultures matter.
Hmm.
That goes for animal kingdom and human kingdom. And the beautiful diversity of our cultures and our color and our
Yeah,
religions is what makes life exciting.
it's
Be
true.
inquisitive, as she is. Jelly Bean is inquisitive
Hmm.
rather than condemning something you don't even understand.
And you want it to last.
Yeah.
If they could only maintain that
Mhm.
wonderment and enthusiasm and questioning. And a lot of adults don't have that anymore. They're just,
I
it's
don't think they ever
hard.
did. The people that just can't blanch by the BS are not thinking for themselves, who do not take responsibility for their lives. It's the finger pointing, it's their fault, their fault, their fault. But there's three fingers pointing back at you and going, well, where's your responsibility, your accountability, where's your action?
I
And they
know.
don't want that because that means they have to do something. It's easier to blame. If we can teach our children like Jelly Bean is, of facing this situation, that situation, feeling wanting to do something about it, getting into trouble, all of that type of thing, navigating her through that, but looking at that core conviction of wanting to help people, wanting to be inclusive,
Yeah, you're right.
wanting to make a difference and have them grow up into the other part of teenage years with that, then they'll be inquiring people rather than condemning people.
No, that's certainly the goal and the hope. True.
So you number three is with the publisher. Number four, you're writing right
In the
now.
works. Uh-huh.
So is this something that you're just going to keep on writing until
You know
there
what?
is no?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. And do you remember Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farms? The
I've
book,
I've heard of it. Yes.
the series. Oh, it's so good. So I used to read that to my daughter, and I guess it's a little bit slightly, somewhat patterned after that. And
Hmm.
she does get older. So then I have to think about, are my old other books going to be for young adults?
Yes.
Probably. She'll, as she
I
gets a
think
little
that the
older.
people that read them now at that early age and read all of the books, they want the next chapter of
They
Jelly
do.
Bean.
They do.
They want they're then stepping into, the 16s and the 18s, and they want to know how they navigate into adulthood because, it becomes part of their story, a part of their
Right.
compass. So how Jelly Bean navigates it, but was very often will become that, compass for how they will navigate it. So yeah,
Right.
write her into a granny.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I have a little ways to go, but yeah, I'm certainly going to try. And I hope I think of some more clever and creative titles. I'm not particularly good with that either. But again, my oldest granddaughter went to AI for me and looked up some because I
Yeah,
have,
but yeah, ask the kids, they'll tell you. I mean, that's
honest,
the thing.
yeah, child's the father of the man. That is the truth. Um, as in the poem. Okay, so I have the Adventures of Jelly Bean, the Further Adventures of Jelly Bean, and the Still Further Adventures of Jelly Bean. And I was asking my granddaughter, she went on AI and looked up some titles for me for my book four. So it's in the works.
Yeah, I mean, jelly beans, a teenager exploits. So, jelly beans coming of age, all of
Mm.
that type of thing. Kind of then it also distinguishes the age group,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So, and then, when you further go down the road, jelly bean goes to work, or
Mhm.
career, university years or whatever the case is. And so by putting that in there, then people know where it belongs and what period it captures.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah. I think I will.
So, I mean, the thing is, Jelly Bean, as you said, has taken on a character of its own, which is an integration of you, your children, your grandchildren, life as you've seen it, the
Uh-huh.
school kids. And
Yes.
and the thing is as a writer, almost you get out of your own way and let Jelly Bean find her way,
Yes. Because
right?
for example, things I put in from my own life. So back in the day when I was in third grade, and I wasn't really talking, but it looked like and we were supposed to be quiet in the lunchroom. And this teacher oh God, she was on lunch duty that day. And believe me, I know how hard that is from having done it. So she pointed to me and said, "You." And this is in there. I put it in my book three or four. But she said, "You come down to my classroom after school." And I really wanted to go to Brownies. Do you remember Brownies?
Yes, yes, that was a brownie.
Okay, so and it was just the beginning, and I really wanted to go. So I was hiding under the table down in the basement. That's where they were having the first meeting. So I thought I could hide out. And then I'm not kidding. This one girl, this goody two shoes, she came down, and I had two friends that were trying to hide me. And she said to that teacher, there she is.
Mhm.
So, oh my God, I just remember being so upset. I had to go up and sit in her classroom while she was grading papers, whatever she was doing. And this girl's mother, one of the girl's mothers, who was like this, large and in charge person, came down and rescued me. And I thought she was like heaven sent. And she said, no, she's coming with me. And I remember just like falling into her ample body. And oh, I just was crying away. And she took me downstairs. And I remember we stopped in the bathroom. And I'm in such a vivid memory,
Yes.
wash my face and all. And I went down and I got to go with the brownie.
But how ridiculous in the lunchroom that the kids can't talk. That's when they communicate with each other, share their
But
stories, share their this and that. That is socialization. Who came up with that one?
back then, believe me, things were a lot stricter.
Yeah, I've been to
They
five
must have
schools, so
wanted,
yeah.
they must have wanted to make an announcement or something. I don't remember that part, but
Right.
a bad day at Black Rock.
Um, yeah, I went through quite a number of things at school, and it's amazing what stays with you. And I wrote my memoir last year, and my daughter read it, and she said, Mom, you didn't tell us about this." And it's my
Mhm.
father had died, and none of at boarding school, and nobody else believed me. So
Oh.
these three kids. Um, Dragged me out by my hair into the garden where they had dug a hole and they were going to bury me like a weed because
Whoa.
I was a very sickly child and so couldn't do a lot of stuff. And
Jeez.
the stupid thing is they dug the hole right outside the principal's window. Right. So,
God.
for me, I don't remember those three girls at all. No face, no name, no nothing.
Wow.
I can laugh at it now because they got caught, but it's just one of the things that happened. And
Yes.
she was more traumatized than I was, but it is like,
Oh my
it's
God.
just one of the things because
Wow.
kids can be so cruel. Where did they
Mhm.
get that cruelty from? And that is something we need to look at. It's like then when we start dividing and judging, that's when cruelty steps in. So when we make more unison and accepting and inquiring, that's when compassion sets in. So I think it's really good to teach our kids that, through books. Um, and are your books in audio as well, or just ebook?
Oh, that's interesting. You should say that. So I was looking for an audio person and I interviewed a few. They weren't quite right. But this publisher, because I switched to Pegasus, they do that for me. Interesting point. And I need to remind them about that. Yes, that's promised in the deal.
And for your
So,
other books, again, you can use AI. You can even use your own voice.
mhm.
And what you can do is there's programs where you give a sample of your voice, like you can
Oh,
read few paragraphs, and then it will read the transcript and be your
wow.
audio for your voice. So
All right. I will have to do that. I
yeah,
will have to do.
yeah. So for your other books, so because a lot of kids today maybe do not have time to sit and read, but on the way to school or doing the chores
Yes,
or this or that. So we have to meet them where they're at.
true.
Right? Um, but the beauty of it is as I say to people, have podcast clubs, listen to a podcast and everybody take notes and share afterwards. Well, that's what a book club is about. And
Uh-huh.
if we could arrange kids at these age groups to have a book club and talk about Jelly Bean, now they're sharing that experience and expanding it even more. So,
Oh,
you
it's
know,
such a good idea.
Christmas is coming up, folks,
Yes.
and I think that a book is one of those things that keeps on giving.
Hmm.
Not only it keeps on giving to the person that's read it because different things of the book kind of comes up at different times, but then, other people that have read it and the sharing of it. So I think this is a great time to kind of purchase one and two, for Christmas, and then three and four will be out next year.
Yes. Yes. Hopefully the sooner the better, but thank you. I do
Yeah,
appreciate that. And they're available on Amazon.
right. So
That's the quickest.
let's give all the indications. So of course, it's The Adventures of Jellybean by
Hmm.
Amy, and
Meislin
it's
Pollack.
Meislin
Uh-huh.
Pollack.
But you
P.
can look me up under
Oh,
Pollack.
right, I'm going to spell it for some people who are just listening to the audio.
Okay.
So Pollack is Pollack. So ASK. So if you go to Amazon and put in The Adventures of Jelly Bean, it most likely will come up, but if their name is there. And obviously amypollack.com. And you're on Instagram, which is
Mhm.
Jelly Bean, the book series. Facebook is author Amy, Meislin, Meislin Pollack.
Yes,
Uh,
yes,
Adventures of Jelly Bean on X and LinkedIn, Amy Pollack. So people can reach out to you and start a conversation because you want the kids to read this, but you want the parents to read this and have a conversation too.
yes.
Because very often what happens, a parent has no idea what's going on with their kid.
I
And if
know.
they find out something, they have no idea how to address it. So
Hmm.
if other parents can read what the kids are reading and come together and have a conversation about it, you're better equipped to how to address it with your kid.
Yeah, valuable and fun.
Yes,
Hopefully,
exactly.
it should be fun.
Exactly. And I think it's a great question for kids when they've read this and the parents have read it. Well, mum, mum or dad, what did you do, or what would you do in this situation? And start
Mhm.
opening up those doors, and make it less separation of kid and parent, more about, oh, your parent was a kid once.
Yeah, I know. I know. I do remember thinking that, coming to that realization one day.
Yeah. So, all of this
Finding.
it's something that gives to the kid, it gives to the parents,
Yes,
grandparents, aunts, teachers, whoever is also reading this book. It gives to society as a whole as they grow up. But it is not only inspiration for the child, it becomes a guidance for the child as well. So
yes.
that is the importance. Sorry, forgot to turn my
Hmm.
phone off there. Um,
Okay.
so that's the really important thing. It's that, as I said, the gift that keeps on giving. And of course,
Um,
then go to your site, Amy Pollack, Pollack.com, and they can find
mhm.
everything there. But keep on writing. And when book 4 and 5 are up, come and back and tell us all about those ones as well.
Oh, well, definitely. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Again,
it.
Christmas is around the corner, folks. A book is something that isn't just up and, thrown away. It's something that they can dive into that can be so meaningful that can change their lives.
Mhm.
And give them some a tool and a voice because very often those characters are a voice that they feel they don't have. So let Jelly
True.
Bean become a guide for them.
Oh, thank you so much.
So thank you, Amy, and to
Says it all.
everyone else out there. Books for Christmas, right? Give Jelly Bean a 2. Grade 4, you may have a grade 3 if that's kind of more advanced, right? So you know
Yes,
where your kid is at. Um,
yes.
but, read it yourself as well. And then,
Mhm.
incite the conversation. I read the book and such and such and such as, that happened to me or this or that. Let it be
Mhm.
your bridge. Let it be your bridge.
Oh, very good. Excellent. Oh, thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for writing the books and to
Uh,
your kids for pushing you to write the books because they're very much needed. So,
thank
folks,
you.
until next time, remember Christmas gift books. So, until next time, bye for now.
Thank you so much.
Cast tag at the top there, and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.